A long time ago, when wolves still roamed the land of Britain, two mysterious children, a boy and a girl, appeared in a field in the village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England. It was harvesting time, and when reapers were busy gathering crops in the field, they saw the children with strange clothes near the mouth of a wolf trap. Hobgoblins! And some screams and fled the scene, for the children, though with a physique no different from other human children, their skin was as green as the leaves of spring. The children were taken in by the kind Sir Richard de County, but it wasn't easy to begin with, as they spoke in a language no one could understand, and refused all food except raw broad beans. With patience and care, the children slowly adapted to their new surroundings. The boy, unfortunately, fell ill and passed away. The girl, however, thrived in her new home, and her green skin slowly faded as she grew accustomed to the common diet. She learned to speak fairly fluent English, and when asked about her native land, she spoke of a place of perpetual twilight, where the sun never shone, and the inhabitants were green skin like her. According to William of Newburgh, the girl called the place St. Martin's Land, where a broad river separated them from another land. They were lost while tending to their flocks. The sounds of bells led them through a cave-in and ended up in a fields outside Woolpit. This 12th century tale inspired countless theories and interpretation. Some proposed the children came from a fairy other world, while others suggest they were extraterrestrial visitors, inhabitants of the land of the dead, and travelers from a parallel universe, or time travelers. There are also those who argue that they were Flemish immigrants escaping persecution during the reign of Henry II, possibly suffering from hypochromic anemia, which can lead to a greenish skin tone due to low hemoglobin levels. Regardless of their true origins, the mention of St. Martin in the story highlights a cultural and historical reference to a long-forgotten festival in Britain. St. Martin of Tours, born in the 4th century in what is now Hungary, is often depicted as a humble soldier turned saint. As a young Roman soldier, he famously shared his cloak with a beggar during a harsh winter, and that night he dreamed of Christ wearing the very cloak he had given away. Martin later became the Bishop of Tours, where he performed miracles, healing the sick, casting out demons, and even raising the dead. Patron of soldiers, beggars, and winemakers, St. Martin is especially honored in countries like France, Germany, and the Netherlands, where his feast day on 11th of November is still celebrated today with lantern processions and festive gatherings. November is the awkward middle child between All Hallows Eve and Christmas. Your Halloween decorations are down, your Christmas tree is too early to make an appearance, and the clock has gone back. The days are now shorter, colder, and miserable. But in the olden days, November was certainly not the idle sibling. This was a busy month, an important time to prepare and ensure the survival of the harsher winter. The feast of St. Martin, or Martinmas, was once widely celebrated in large parts of Britain and Ireland. It was closely tied to the end of the agricultural season, time to give thanks to the year's crops and prepare for the colder months ahead. Chimneys were swept, and crops had been brought in, animals slaughtered, meats were preserved, and the feasting followed. In Scotland, Martinmas and Whitsunday were known as term days, and along with Candlemas and Lammas, they made up the quarter days. These were key dates for settling payments and marking the start and end of employment contracts, and they also lined up with academic terms, and Martinmas and Candlemas are still the name used for the 2 semesters at the University of St. Andrews. The Martinmas hiring fairs were held annually in various market towns, some lasting up to 8 days. These fairs were vibrant and bustling events for potential employees, primarily agricultural workers, servants, and tradespeople, and came together to discuss wages and employment conditions. Since many workers had just received their annual pay, it became a festive occasion where young people socialize, connect, and potentially establish romantic relationships. St. Martin is also patron of horses, often depicted as a Roman soldier with a large cape on horseback. It is no surprise that the ritual related to horses was conducted on his feast day. In times when communities rely on horses for transportation and agricultural productions, the ability to control horses was a highly sought-after skill. Toadman in East Anglia, England, were among the horse whisperers in Britain who believed they have special power over horses. In Orkney and the northeast of Scotland, the initiate members of the Society of the Horseman's Words serve a similar purpose. This fraternal secret society mainly consisted of those who worked with horses, and its members were believed to wield great power over the animal. Influenced by Freemasonry and other friendly societies that adopted Masonic-style structures and rituals, their initiation ceremonies, often held during Martinmas on the 11th of November, took place in a barn between 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., where the initiates, usually 13 in number, arrived with offerings of whiskey and bread. After being blindfolded, they were guided through a series of rituals. While there were regional variations in the ceremonies, each concluded with a symbolic act of shaking the devil's hand, which was actually a branch covered in animal fur. Upon completion, the initiates received a secret word that was said to grant them a special connection and control over the horses. The old saying, "Every pig gets its Martin," and its Martinmas will come as it does to every hog, reflects the custom of animal slaughtering in the olden days. In rural Andalusia, La Matanza, the annual slaughter of pigs is still carried out around the 11th of November in preparation for the winter drying of hams, sausages, and black pudding. The rituals of sacrifice and the shedding of blood, once associated with the ancient festival of Samhain, were absorbed into Martinmas, following the calendar shift from the Julian to the Gregorian system, which led some to refer to it as All Halloween. In many parts of Ireland, animals, particularly cockerel, used to be slaughtered on the eve of Martinmas by bleeding. According to archaeologist and folklorist Billy McLean, the blood from this killing ritual was often allowed to fall in a pool on the ground or on the doorstep of the house, stable, and barn. Occasionally, the blood was applied to the four corners of the inside of the house or daubed on the back of the front door in the shape of a cross. Some would even anoint the members of the family on the forehead with the blood, as a prophylactic measure to keep people and livestock safe from disease, death, and evil spirits. A piece of cloth or flax tow and soaked in this blood will be left to dry and used throughout the year for healing purposes. Some households would even throw the head of the killed bird over the roof as a protection against evil. The bird was then eaten as a special meal. This custom survived in some areas of Ireland well into the 20th century. In Britain, however, the celebration began to decline significantly during the Reformation in the 16th century, and by the end of Oliver Cromwell's protectorate in the mid-17th century, many of the medieval feast days, including Martinmas, had largely faded from common practice. Today, the United Kingdom marks Remembrance Day, also known as Armistice Day, with a 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month, to honor and remember those who have lost their lives in service to their country. The observance serves as a poignant moment of reflection, ensuring that the sacrifices made by servicemen and women in both world wars and later conflicts are never forgotten. Interestingly, the date does not only coincide with Martinmas. St. Martin is also known as the military saint. The name Martin, or Martinus in Latin, is derived from the name of the Roman god of war, Mars. Incidentally, Martinmas, also known as All Halloween or All Samhain, as mentioned earlier, both pray and honor the departed loved ones and souls of the dead. It is perhaps not hard to see the connection between November and death, for plant life wither and die, and many before us not always survived the harsher weather. Rituals and prayers to appease the ancestors or gods for protections and prosperity were, and still are, common practice across many cultures. November in Finnish is called Marraskuu, the month or month of the dead. In the Anglo-Saxon calendar, November was known as Blōtmōnaþ, the month of immolations, a month of blood sacrifices, where animals were to be slaughtered as offerings to the gods. Blót, in Old Norse and Old English, is a term referring to ritual ceremony in Germanic paganism, typically performed to honor the gods, spirits, or ancestors. The term can be found in many compound words relating to worship or sacrifice. Offerblót, the sacrificial offering ritual to the elves, and Dísablót, dedicated to the Dísir, are examples of blood honouring male and female ancestors. And of course, how can the darker season of the year be complete without the ghosts and fairies? Wild is a generic term used in the extremely various myths and folklore associated with spectral, nocturnal processions of supernatural hunters, often led by mythological figures or local legends. Fairy cavalcade, headed by Fionn McCoo, and the Asgard rite of Olden, for example, typically takes place during liminal times. These pre-Christian cycles of movable feasts, which were often dependent on both lunar phases and the lunisolar calendar, and gradually integrated into the Christian calendar. In Welsh folklore, the Wild Hunt, often led by Gwyn ap Nudd, king of the Tylwyth Teg or Fairfolk, and the ruler of the Welsh paradisiacal otherworld of Annwfn, is said to ride out on Norse Callan Kievs and through the winter months, chasing down the souls of the dead. Later tales describe the hunts taking place several nights during the Christianized feast days. One of them was St. Martin's Day. Leading the processions on his horseback, Gwyn rode through the skies and across the land, accompanied by his pack of Annwn, the Hounds of the other world. These supernatural hounds are described in the first branch of Mabinogion to have shining white fur and red ears. In his 1791 work, A Relation of Apparitions of Spirits, Reverend Edmund Jones wrote that the nearer these hounds are, the quieter they howl, and louder when at a distance. Their presence terrifies all living beings. The birds stopped singing, the dogs fled in horror, and for people who heard their howl, death was about to occur to them and those they loved. And perhaps the Annwn were merely a messenger, there to warn those who were about to meet their fate. While some tales describe Gwyn's hunt as an eerie event chasing down souls, I prefer to view that as a night where he guides souls, including those who have died in battle, as mentioned in the Black Book of Carmarthen, to their resting place in his realm of Annwfn, a world of delight and eternal youth, where disease was absent and food was ever abundant. Ever heard of the phrase Blackthorn winter? It has been traditionally used in rural Britain to refer to blackthorn's habit of flowering just before a particular cold snap. The tree represents the dark side of the year and is said to have links with warfare and death. It is associated with the Morrigan, goddess of battle and warfare, also sacred to Down, the god of death. In Scottish folklore, winter begins when the Cailleach, mother goddess of the land and winter, knocked the ground with her blackthorn staff. They are also said to be the home of the fairy folk. Evan Wenz recorded his interview with Patrick Waters in the early 1900s, where he talked about the fairy tribe called the Lunantishi. According to Patrick, this one fairy tribe guards the blackthorn trees, and they permit no one to cut from the trees on the 11th of May and the 11th of November, and the old Beltina and Samhain. If at such a time you caught a Blackthorn, some misfortune will come to you. Over the years, plenty of folks have tried, and there's no shortage of stories about people facing consequences for messing with a Blackthorn tree. November is not only the month of reflection, but also of gratitude and hope. While some view this as the season of the Cailleach until the return of Bridget, many look forward to the month of rebirth that's just around the corner.